1513, Florence, Italy. Niccolò Machiavelli sits in exile, writing by candlelight. He's been stripped of power, tortured, cast out. And in his isolation, he sees something the sociable, the popular, the well-connected cannot see. He writes a single line in his private correspondence. The more friends a man has, the less he understands. For 5 centuries, scholars called Machiavelli the prophet of power. But they missed something. His darkest warning wasn't about princes or politics. It was about you, about the trap of sociability, about why the most connected people are often the most blind. Niccolò Machiavelli, 1469–1527, Florentine diplomat, philosopher, strategist. To the world, he wrote The Prince, a manual on power that shocked Europe. But in his private letters, his lesser-known works, his unguarded moments, he revealed something else. A pattern he observed throughout his years navigating the courts of Italy. The sociable always fell first. The popular were always manipulated. The well-liked were always destroyed. Not sometimes, always. And he warned, if you want to see clearly, if you want to survive, if you want real power, you must learn to be alone. This is the hidden codex. Before we go deeper into what Machiavelli really meant, if you sense there's more to human nature than the comfortable lies we tell ourselves, if you're ready to see what most people refuse to see, subscribe to the Hidden Codex. Turn on notifications, because what comes next cannot be unlearned. Now, let's continue. Machiavelli spent 20 years in the heart of Florentine politics. He watched men rise and fall. He saw alliances form and crumble. He observed who survived and who was destroyed. And he noticed something disturbing. The men who were most loved, most admired, most surrounded by friends, they always lost. Not because they were weak, but because they were blind. Machiavelli called it the illusion of fellowship. Here's how it works. When you're surrounded by people, constantly socializing, always in conversation, your mind adapts. It begins to orient itself around others, around their opinions, their reactions, their approval. This isn't conscious, it's automatic. The more time you spend with people, the more your thoughts become reflections of their thoughts. You think you're thinking for yourself, but you're not. You're thinking what your social environment allows you to think. Machiavelli saw this everywhere. The courtiers who spent all day in company, they had no original ideas. The politicians who networked constantly, they had no real strategy. The merchants who were always making deals, they had no long-term vision. They were reactive, adaptive, socially intelligent, yes, but strategically stupid. Because to see clearly, you need distance. You need silence. You need to step outside the social field and observe from the shadows. But the sociable can't do that. They're addicted to the presence of others, and that addiction makes them predictable, which makes them controllable. Machiavelli wrote in a letter to Francesco Vittori, "A man who is always in company is always performing, and a man who is always performing is never truly thinking." He wasn't being poetic. He was describing a tactical vulnerability. When you're sociable, you broadcast your thoughts, your intentions, your weaknesses. You do it without realizing, through your words, your reactions, your enthusiasm. And those who understand this, they watch, they listen, they collect, and then they use it against you. Machiavelli knew this because he did it himself. He studied people in social settings. He learned more from watching them interact than he ever did from direct conversation. Because in company, people reveal themselves. They compete for attention. They seek validation. They align with the group. And in doing so, they expose exactly how to manipulate them. So here's what Machiavelli understood that most people don't. Sociability isn't a strength. It's a weakness. It's a leak. Every conversation you have, every gathering you attend, every time you seek connection, you're giving away information. You're allowing others to map your mind. And once they have that map, they can control you without you ever knowing. Most people believe being sociable makes them influential. Machiavelli saw something else. He saw that the truly powerful are not the ones everyone knows. They're the ones no one fully understands. They're the ones who listen more than they speak, who observe more than they participate, who remain slightly distant, slightly unknowable. Because mystery is power, and sociability destroys mystery. Let's be practical for a moment. Think about the most sociable person you know. Always at events, always networking, always surrounded by people. Now ask yourself, do they have any depth? Do they have original ideas? Or do they repeat what's popular? Do they have real convictions? Or do they adapt to whoever they're with? Do they have a clear vision? Or are they constantly reacting to social currents? Most of the time, the answer is obvious. The sociable are echoes. They reflect their environment. They have no core. And this is exactly what Machiavelli warned about. In The Prince, he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved." But here's what he didn't write. It's better to be unknown than either. Because the man who is feared can be challenged. The man who is loved can be betrayed. But the man who is unknown, who operates in silence, who keeps his thoughts to himself, he cannot be predicted. And what cannot be predicted cannot be controlled. This is why Machiavelli himself withdrew into isolation after his exile. Not because he was defeated, but because he understood something. In solitude, he could see clearly. He could think without the distortion of social pressure. He could write what he truly believed, not what would be applauded. And in that isolation, he produced his greatest works. The discourses, The Prince, The Art of War, not written for friends, written in silence, for posterity. Machiavelli observed another pattern. The sociable are always optimistic about people. They believe in goodness, in cooperation, in mutual benefit. Why? Because their social environment rewards these beliefs. If you're constantly around people, you develop a bias. You start to think people are better than they are, because the people you're around are performing for you, showing their best selves, hiding their darkness. But Machiavelli spent time alone, and in that solitude, he reflected on what people actually do, not what they say they do. He read history, he studied betrayals, he analyzed collapses, and he came to a conclusion that the sociable can never reach. He wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, hypocrites and dissemblers, avoiders of danger, eager for gain." This isn't cynicism, it's clarity. The kind of clarity you can only achieve when you stop listening to what people say and start watching what they do. And the sociable never get there, because they're too busy believing in the performance. Here's where it gets darker. Machiavelli didn't just observe that the sociable are stupid. He observed that they're useful to those who understand them. The sociable are predictable. They seek approval. They fear rejection. They adapt to social hierarchies, which means they can be led, not through force, through social manipulation. Machiavelli wrote, "The prince must know how to use the beast and the man." But in his private writings, he went further. He wrote, "The man who seeks friendship is already half conquered, because the need for social connection is a vulnerability. And the powerful exploit it. They offer approval. They offer inclusion. They offer the appearance of friendship. And in return, the sociable give everything. Their loyalty, their information, their agency, without realizing they're being controlled." Machiavelli watched this happen over and over. The sociable nobleman who was manipulated by his circle. The popular merchant who was bankrupted by his friends. The well-connected diplomat who was betrayed by those he trusted most. And every time the same pattern. They never saw it coming, because they were too close, too sociable, too trusting. Most people think loneliness is a weakness. Machiavelli saw it as a weapon. He wrote, "The wise man creates his own solitude. The fool is forced into it." What did he mean? He meant that voluntary isolation is strategic. It's not about hating people. It's about controlling your mental environment. When you choose solitude, you choose clarity. You remove the noise, the opinions, the social pressure. You create space to think deeply, to observe patterns, to plan without interference. But the sociable can't do this. They're afraid of being alone, afraid of their own thoughts, afraid of what they might realize if they stop distracting themselves with others. And that fear keeps them weak. Because the moment you need people, you give them power over you. But the moment you're comfortable alone, you become dangerous. In a way most people will never understand. Let's bring this into the modern world. Social media, constant connectivity, the pressure to network, to engage, to be visible. Everyone's told, be sociable, make connections, build your network. But Machiavelli would look at this and see a disaster. Because what's really happening? You're broadcasting your thoughts to thousands. You're seeking validation from strangers. You're performing constantly. And every post, every comment, every interaction is data. Data about how you think, what you value, how you react. And that data is being collected by algorithms, yes, but also by anyone paying attention. Your competitors, your enemies, those who want to manipulate you. The sociable on social media think they're building influence. Machiavelli would say they're building vulnerability. They're giving away the map to their mind for free. And the truly powerful, they're not posting, they're watching, they're in the shadows, learning about you while revealing nothing about themselves. Machiavelli would tell you, if you want power, if you want clarity, if you want to survive, you need to do the opposite of what everyone's doing. Stop being so available. Stop sharing so much. Stop seeking approval from the crowd. Withdraw, observe, think. Let others perform while you watch. Let others reveal themselves while you remain hidden. And when you finally act, When you finally speak, it will carry weight. Because it won't be one voice among thousands. It will be the voice that was silent. And silence, when broken, commands attention. Machiavelli believed the sociable make another critical error. They trust too easily. Because social interaction creates the illusion of connection. You talk to someone, you laugh together, you share a moment. And your brain interprets this as, this person is trustworthy. But it's not true. Social pleasantness is performance. It tells you nothing about what someone will do when their interests conflict with yours. Machiavelli wrote, "Friendships that are obtained by payments and not by greatness or nobility of mind may indeed be earned, but they are not secured." He's saying social bonds are transactional. They exist as long as they're mutually beneficial. But the moment the benefit disappears, so does the bond. The sociable don't understand this. They think their friends are loyal because they've spent time together. But Machiavelli knew, loyalty is rare, self-interest is constant, and the people who smile with you today will turn on you tomorrow if the situation changes. This is why he advised princes to trust very few people. Not because people are evil, but because people are human, and humans act in their own interest. The sociable forget this because they're surrounded by warmth. But warmth is not loyalty. It's just warmth. Here's something Machiavelli understood that almost no one talks about. The sociable develop a dependency. They become addicted to the presence of others, to conversation, to validation, to the energy of groups. And this dependency weakens them. Because when you need people, you can't act against their interests. You can't make unpopular decisions. You can't stand alone when necessary. You become a prisoner of your own social network. Machiavelli saw this destroy countless men. They knew the right move. They saw the truth. But they couldn't act on it because it would alienate their friends. So they compromised. They delayed. They tried to please everyone. And in the end, they lost everything. Because reality doesn't care about social harmony. It cares about action, about decisiveness, about the courage to stand alone when everyone else is wrong. And the sociable can never develop that courage. Because they're too afraid of being alone. Machiavelli spent his final years in isolation. Not by choice, but by circumstance. But in that isolation, he found something. Freedom. Freedom from the need to impress. Freedom from the pressure to conform. Freedom from the exhausting performance of sociability. And in that freedom, he saw human nature more clearly than perhaps anyone before or since. He saw that people are driven by fear and desire. That they're easily manipulated through social pressure. That they'll betray their own interests to maintain social acceptance. And he saw that the only way to escape this trap is to step outside of it. To become comfortable in solitude. To develop the strength to think alone, decide alone, act alone, even if the whole world disagrees. Especially if the whole world disagrees. Because that's when clarity matters most. Now let's put this all together. Machiavelli spent decades observing human behavior in the most cutthroat political environment imaginable. Renaissance Italy, a place where alliances shifted daily, where betrayal was common, where power was everything. And in that environment, he discovered a pattern. The sociable always lost. Not sometimes, always. Because being sociable created blindness. It created dependency. It created vulnerability. And it destroyed the one thing that matters most, the ability to see reality clearly and act on it decisively. Machiavelli's warning wasn't just about politics. It was about human nature itself. He was saying, the more you need people, the less you understand them. The more you seek their approval, the less you can trust your own judgment. The more you're in company, the less you truly think. And here's the darkest part. Most people never realize this. They go through life thinking their sociability is a strength, thinking their network is an asset, thinking their friendships are real, and they never see the truth. That they're being shaped by their social environment, that their thoughts aren't their own, that they're predictable, controllable, and ultimately expendable. Because when you're sociable, you become part of the crowd, and the crowd is always led by someone who stands outside it, someone who watches from the shadows, someone who understands what Machiavelli understood 500 years ago, that solitude is power, that silence is strategy, that the most dangerous person in any room is the one who doesn't need to be there. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "It is much safer to be feared than loved when one of the two must be lacking." But in his personal writings, he revealed something deeper. He wrote, "The wise man is not known by what he says in company, but by what he thinks in solitude." This is the lesson they don't teach. This is the warning that was buried, not because it's complicated, but because it's uncomfortable. Because it means that everything you've been told about the value of social connection, about networking, about being likable, might be wrong. Or worse, it might be a trap. A trap that keeps you visible, predictable, and weak, while those who truly understand power remain hidden. So here's the question Machiavelli leaves you with. Are you sociable because you're strong? Or are you sociable because you're afraid to be alone? Are you in company because you're learning? Or are you in company because you're avoiding yourself? Do you think your own thoughts? Or do you think what your social environment allows you to think? These are hard questions. Machiavelli didn't expect most people to ask them, because most people are too busy performing, too busy seeking approval, too busy being sociable. But you're still here, which means maybe you're different. Maybe you're willing to see what he saw, that the sociable are not the most powerful. They're the most manipulated, not the most intelligent, the most blind, not the most free, the most enslaved by their own need for others. And once you see that, everything changes. Machiavelli saw it, and it made him one of the most clear-eyed observers of human nature in history, not because he was cynical, but because he was alone. And in that aloneness, he could finally see. The question is, are you ready to see it too? Or will you stay in the crowd? Most people stay. It's safer there, warmer, more comfortable. But nothing real happens in comfort. Nothing true is found in the crowd. Machiavelli knew this, and he paid the price for it. Exile, isolation, being misunderstood for centuries. But he also gained something. Clarity, the kind of clarity that cuts through illusion. The kind of clarity that sees human nature as it really is, not as we wish it to be. And that clarity, that brutal honesty, that willingness to stand alone and speak the truth, that's what made him immortal. 500 years later, we're still talking about him. Not because he was sociable, but because he wasn't. If this revealed something you've always sensed but never articulated, if you're ready to explore more of what history's greatest minds saw but rarely said aloud, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. Because here at the Hidden Codex, we don't stop at comfortable truths. We go into the shadows where real understanding lives. Next time, we'll explore Carl Jung's warning about the shadow self and why integrating it might be the most dangerous thing you ever do. Until then, stay awake, stay apart, and remember Machiavelli's final lesson. The crowd is always wrong, because if they were right, they wouldn't be the crowd.